Namaste, this is Samta Auntie. In this video, we are going to review the rules of nouns in Hindi. First, let's review what a noun is. A noun is a person, a place, a thing, an animal, or an idea. So nouns are literally all around us. In Hindi, there are two noun categories. The pull category is the male category, and stri is the female category. And every single noun falls into one of these categories. Remember, every single noun falls into one of these categories, and a noun cannot be in both categories. Each noun is going to be in one or the other. When we're talking about people, for the most part, it's easy to decide who goes into the pull category and who goes into the stri category. But what about when we're talking about animals or places or things? Then how do we know if it's pull or if it's stri? Well, there are a few rules that help us. Rule number 1. If the Hindi word for the noun ends with an a sound, then it's a pull noun. Let's say that again. If it ends with a, it's pull, such as kutta, darwaza, and kanta. Did you hear how they all ended with a? Yep, so these are all pull nouns. Okay, let's learn rule number 2. If the Hindi word for the noun ends with an e sound, then it's a stri noun. Let's say that again. If it ends with e, it's stri, such as sari, thali, and roti. Did you hear how they all ended with e? So these are all stri. Right about now, you probably have a question swirling in your brain. Does that mean that all Hindi nouns end with an a or an e? Nope, they don't. So then what do we do with nouns that don't end with a or e? For example, chammach, more, and sand. There's no us, there's no e's. So what do we do? That leads us to rule number 3. If the Hindi word for the noun does not end with a or e, then, for the most part, assume it's pull. I'm going to say that again. If it doesn't end with a or e, it's pull. For the most part, it will be pull. Now that we have learned these 3 rules, let's take a moment to talk about animals. Remember, what matters is the Hindi word for the animal, not whether the animal itself is a boy or a girl, or I should say male or female. The Hindi word for dog is kutta. Does that end with an a sound? Kutta. Yes, it does. So it's pull. Cat in Hindi is called billi. Does that end with e? Yep. So it's stri. So why doesn't it matter whether the animal itself is a boy or a girl? For example, if it's a boy dog or a girl dog. Well, that's a really good question. Why doesn't it matter? And let me ask you a question now. When you see someone walking their dog, can you tell by looking at the dog whether it's a boy or a girl? No. What about when you go to the zoo? When you see a cheetah or a giraffe or a rhino, can you tell whether it's a boy or a girl? No. So that's why the noun category for animals is based on the Hindi word for the animal and not the animal itself, because we needed a rule to apply to the animals, not whether it's a boy or a girl, because we as humans can't look at an animal and know that. So right now you might be thinking, but what about lions or peacocks, where it is easy to tell the difference between males and females or boys and girls? And my answer to that is there has to be one rule that can be applied to all animals. Otherwise, Hindi would just be super complicated, even more complicated than it already is. So that's why we don't have based on the animal itself, if it's a male or a female, it's based on the Hindi word for the animal. Now, let's move on. If you remember when I told you rule number 3, which was that what to do if the Hindi noun doesn't end with an or an e, I said that for the most part, assume pull. If you were listening carefully, you heard me say for the most part, most nouns. Well, what does that mean? How do we know which category then? It means that there are some exceptions to these rules. Exceptions to these rules means that there are some nouns that don't follow these 3 rules. And there are some groups of nouns that are already assigned to one of the 2 categories, pull or stri. For example, the names of all languages are stri, and all of the planets are pull. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. As you get deeper and deeper into your study of Hindi and nouns, you will come to understand what those nouns are that don't follow the rules, and these groups of nouns that have been pre-assigned to certain categories. But don't worry about that for now. For now, all I want you to focus on and make sure you understand is these takeaways. Every noun falls into a category, either pull or stri. Every noun is only in one category. That means a noun cannot be in both categories. If the noun ends with an a sound, it's pull. If the noun ends with e, it's stri. If the noun doesn't end with either a or e, it's pull. And now you know how nouns in Hindi work. This is huge, guys. This is a really big leap in learning Hindi, so really good job. And please watch and re-watch this video to make sure you really understand this, because you cannot move forward with Hindi if you don't. Dhanyavad for joining me. I'll see you in class.